Bwrda dosbarth Today we're looking at what we can find out about characters based on their dialogue. To start us off, I've taken a little bit of dialogue from The Hobbit and I'm going to read it through to you, and then we're going to look at these questions and find out what we can tell about the characters by reading their dialogue. "Very pretty," said Gandalf, "but I have no time to blow smoke rings this morning. I am looking for someone to share in an adventure that I am arranging, and it's very difficult to find anyone." "I should think so in these parts. We are a plain, quiet folk and have no use for adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. Make you late for dinner. I can't think what anyone sees in them," said our Mr. Baggins, and stuck one thumb behind his braces and blew out another, even bigger smoke ring. Then he took out his morning letters and began to read, pretending to take no more notice of the old man. He had decided that he was not quite his sort and wanted him to go away. But the old man did not move. He stood leaning on his stick and gazing at the Hobbit without saying anything, till Bilbo got quite uncomfortable and even a little cross. "Good morning," he said at last. "We don't want any adventures here, thank you. You might try over the hill or across the water." By this time he meant that the conversation was at an end. Right, our first question says, do you think that Bilbo Baggins does exciting things often? Why/why not? So you need to give a reason for your answer, which you might be able to find in something he says. Pause the video here, try and find something to prove your point, and then unpause so I can go through the answer with you. Right, if this was me, the first thing I would be noticing is that Bilbo says, "I should think so in these parts. We are a plain, quiet folk and have no use for adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things that make you late for dinner." So, if Bilbo is afraid of being late for dinner by going out or going somewhere new, he probably doesn't do exciting things often. If he's quiet and he's plain, then he probably isn't an adventurous sort of person, and he probably isn't out there doing exciting things a lot of the time. Our next question asks, do you think that Bilbo knows Gandalf well? Explain your answer. So, you might not be able to find a specific piece of dialogue that shows this, but have a look at their dialogue as a whole. Is there anything that sticks out to you? Anything that makes you think, I don't think they know each other very well, or yeah, they know each other really well? Pause the video here, have a little look, and again unpause when you're ready. Now personally, I don't think Mr. Baggins and Gandalf know each other very well at all, because neither one of them mentions their name anywhere in the dialogue. So you don't hear Bilbo say, "Oh, Gandalf, you won't find anyone for an adventure around here," and you don't see Gandalf say, "Oh, Bilbo, do you want to come on an adventure with me?" So there's nothing there really to suggest that they know each other on a first name basis. But then also, there's this bit at the end where you get Bilbo says, "Good morning. We don't want any adventures here, thank you. You might try over the hill or across the water." Now he's talking to him almost like he's a salesman at the door. "No thank you, I don't want any shoe polish, away with you." So that doesn't really sound like he knows him very personally. It sounds like someone who's passing through and he's like, "No, I don't want your adventures, off you go." So I would say no, they probably don't know each other very well, and I base that on my two reasons. They don't mention each other's names, and he speaks to him almost like he's a passing stranger at the end, like thank you, but no, go away. And that brings us on to our last question. It says, why do you think Bilbo has taken a dislike to Gandalf? So, why do you think he doesn't like Gandalf? Have a look at the things they both say to each other and see if there's anything that you could pick out that makes you think, that's probably why. Pause the video here, have a little look, and pause when you're ready. Okay, so for me, the thing that really makes it sound like he's taken a dislike to Gandalf is the fact that Gandalf sounds like the person who is looking for adventures. He's an exciting person. Like, he says here, I'm looking for someone to share an adventure. So obviously he's the type of person who goes out looking for adventure. But Bilbo, he's a plain, quiet person, and he has no use for adventures. So they are not going to be the type of people who are going to get along really well. And that's implied again further down when it says he had decided that he was not quite his sort. So he had decided that they were two very different people and that he didn't like him very much. So this next extract is taken from Matilda, and it's all about a little girl if you haven't seen the film or watched the movie. So I'm going to read it through to you, and you're going to then look at these questions, and again we're going to see what we can find out about the characters based on their dialogue. The only book in the whole of this enlightened household was something called Easy Cooking, belonging to her mother, and when she found that she had read this from cover to cover and had learned all the recipes by heart, she had decided she wanted something more interesting. "Daddy," she said, "do you think you could buy me a book?" "A book?" he said. "What do you want a flaming book for?" "To read, Dad." "What's wrong with the telly, for heaven's sake? We've got a lovely telly with a 12-inch screen, and now you come asking me for a book? You're getting spoiled, my girl." So let's have a look at that first question. Do you think Matilda's dad is kind? Why or why not? So have a look, pause the video, unpause when you're ready to check your answer by mine. So the things that say that he's not very kind to me are, what do you want a flaming book for? And for heaven's sake, we've got a lovely telly. And now you come asking me for a book? You're getting spoiled. All of those things he says imply that he's not very nice. All she's done is ask him for a book, and he said, "What do you want a flaming book for? For heaven's sake, we've got a telly. Now you're asking me for a book, you're getting spoiled." They all suggest that he's not very nice to Matilda very often. Now let's take a look at the next question. It says, how do you think Matilda's dad is feeling when Matilda asks for a book? Give a reason to support your thoughts. So, how do you think Matilda's dad feels when Matilda asks him for a book? Can you find any clues as to how he's feeling in what he says or the way that he says it? Have a little pause, think about it, and unpause when you're ready. So I would say he's feeling a bit angry or a bit annoyed because he doesn't just say, "Oh, no, you can't have a book." He says, "What do you want a flaming book for?" He says, "For heaven's sake." And he says, "You come asking me for a book." They all suggest he's a little bit irritated, he's a little bit annoyed. Okay, next question. There's only 2 left, and then I'm going to show you our main task. Do you think Matilda's dad likes to read? Why do you think this? So, again, pause, look for some evidence in the dialogue, see if you can find out whether he likes to read or not. So, if it was me, I would say no, I don't think he likes to read. And the reason for that is, again, what do you want a flaming book for? And he says, "What's wrong with the telly?" He says, "We've got a lovely telly." It's almost like he values watching TV more than he values reading. So I would say no, I think he probably doesn't like to read. Last question. Do you think Matilda likes to read? Why? Again, pause, unpause when you're ready. Now, I would say yes to this one. I think that she does like to read, and the reason I would think that is this really obvious question at the top. Do you think you could buy me a book? Now, she wouldn't ask for a book unless she wanted to read it or unless she enjoyed to read. And obviously then you've got the other evidence up along the top that says the only book in the whole of this enlightened household was called Easy Cooking, She had read this from cover to cover and learned all the recipes by heart. So obviously she'd read it so much that there was nothing more she could learn from it, and that's when she thought, oh, I'd really like another book. So yes, I think Matilda would like to read, or does like to read, and that's my reason why. So now I've shown you how to find those little bits of information about our characters from dialogue. We're going to have a look at our main job today. So you've got an extract from the Black Cauldron. All the extracts are the same, but the questions will be different. So let's have a look at the 1-star challenge. The extract says, there's something wrong. I can feel it in my bones. The fair folk know it too. You don't see any of them around. The Horned King, that black-hearted devil. What's he waiting for? Said Dorban, his face thoughtful. Oh, Taran, the pot is boiling over, Taran, Dorban said with urgency. Taran moved towards the pot. Oh, Dorban, I was just thinking, what if the war's over and I never had a chance to fight? Sighed Taran. And a good thing too. War isn't a game. People get hurt, Dorban said forcefully. But I'm not afraid. Oh, ouch. Taran hissed as he nursed his burned finger. He had touched the pot without a glove. Aha! There you are. If the Horned King ever returns, you'll have a great deal more to worry about than a burned finger, said Dorban with a shake of his head. So, after you've read that little paragraph, you've got these questions about what's being said. So the first one says, what are the names of the characters in the dialogue? And all you've got to do then is find the 2 names of the characters within that dialogue and write them on the line. The next one says, why is Taran distracted from the pot boiling over? So you've got to look at what Taran says, and what he says is his reason for being distracted, and it's in there, but you've got to read it carefully. The next one says, how do you think Dorban is feeling in the first 4 lines? So when he's talking up here, how do you think he's feeling, and what clues let you know that he's feeling that way? What is the name of the villain mentioned in the dialogue? Now there is a villain mentioned there, but you have to read carefully. And how do we know this character is the villain? So again, that's going to be something that Dorban has said that allows you to know that that character is the villain. So the 1-star sheet has slightly easier questions. So if you're not too confident, maybe that's where you'd like to start today. Maybe you're feeling quite confident with this and you'd like questions that are a little bit more tricky. So it says, do you think the characters in the text are related? Give a reason for your thoughts. So you'd have to read through that dialogue and think, are there any clues that tell me that these characters are maybe father and son or brothers, or do they just live in the same house together? You have to decide if there are any clues that tell you if those characters are related. Down below it says, how do you think Dorban is feeling in the first 4 lines? Give a reason for your answer. So you don't just say how he is feeling in those first 4 lines this time. You have to tell us why you think that. Underneath you've got, can you find a line in the dialogue that suggests Taran is brave? So you're looking for something that Taran says that maybe suggests that he's quite brave, or at least he appears to be brave. And 3-star, a little bit harder again. There are some similar questions or some of the same questions, but they build up in difficulty. So we've got here, why do you think Dorban says, aha, there you are, when Taran burns his finger? What point is he trying to make? So that's quite a tricky question, and that's going to make you really think about what he's saying and why he's saying it. So choose the challenge that's right for you. Obviously, if you start on one and it's too easy, feel free to change over to a different challenge sheet. I don't mind, as long as the challenge is just right for you. I look forward to seeing what you do on Seesaw. Hwyl fawr for now, dosbarth oren.